Might be a pretty novel
We're
one.
watching a city council.
To our regular scheduled city council meeting for Monday, September 11th. If you could all join me in pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Councilor Bouchard. Here. Mayor Blue Eyes.
Here.
Councilor Champlin.
Here.
Councilor Cohen.
Here.
Councilor Grady Sexton. Here. Councilor Hirschlag.
Here.
Councilor Keach.
She's excused.
Councilor Kennison.
Here.
Councilor Kritovic.
Here.
Councilor Mattson.
She's excused.
Councilor
Present.
Councilor St. Hilaire.
Here.
Councilor Shirtliff.
Here.
Councilor Todd.
Here.
And Councilor Warner.
Here. Super. Great to see everybody here tonight. Tonight we will start with honoring the services of our friend, retired firefighter James Cloutier. Come on. Have to be to bring me flowers. All right. So we have resolution, the recognition of the services of firefighter James Cloutier. The City of Concord resolves as follows. Whereas firefighter James Cloutier has been a faithful and loyal employee of the City of Concord for over 30 years. 30 years?
31, pretty much.
All right.
Yep.
As a member of the Concord Fire Department, firefighter Cloutier began his career in 1987 and served as a firefighter and emergency medical technician. And whereas firefighter Cloutier has worked throughout the City of Concord during his career and has responded to several thousand calls for his assistance from Concord residents and has always been ready and willing to offer timely and often life-saving aid. Whereas firefighter Cloutier has served well and honorably as a team member and has supported other firefighters, and especially newer members in their professional growth and development. And whereas firefighter Cloutier has received many commendations and letters of thanks for his work. Now therefore be resolved by the City Council of Concord that we hereby record our sincere appreciation for the many years and faithful and distinguished service from firefighter James Cloutier to the City of Concord and to the state of New Hampshire. Be it further resolved that we hereby acknowledge that the service and presence of firefighter James Cloutier will truly be missed by the Concord Fire Department, the City Council, the City Administration, and the entire Concord community. And we extend our best wishes to him and his family during his retirement. Passed in Council, August 14th, signed by myself. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll keep it short. When I started back in '87, my first battalion chief was Ray Milton, and my first day on the job, probably my first hour. He came over and he shook my hand. He said, "Welcome to the Concord Fire Department." He goes, he said to me, "Your career's gonna flash right by, just like that." And 31 years for me flew by. I've seen a lot of good things, seen a lot of bad things, made a lot of good memories, made a lot of great friends, and I have no regrets. And the city of Concord's been great to me. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks very
And
much.
thank you.
So for somebody who doesn't give speeches, that was pretty well done. So translated, did your wife write that?
She's like, yes.
A little bit? All right. Thank you again. And I suspect I'll see him around town, too.
You will.
At this time, it's my pleasure to recognize the Black Ice Hockey Association. Do you want to come on up? Leaving the rest of the team behind, or?
Fournier.
I want to see Fournier on
I
television.
know.
Sorry.
Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity. I've got some shy board members with the Black Ice Association, so that's why I usually end up getting thrown on TV most occasions, because they're good workers, but not my media marketing folks. But tonight, the Black Ice would like to make a formal gift to the city of Concord in the amount of $22,000. This is the proceeds from this year's Black Ice tournament that will be put into the skate house fund that we have set aside right now. In total, that is $80,000 in the 6 years the pond hockey has happened at White Park, to put in the fund that we will eventually rebuild the White Park skate house. In some discussions as well, the Black Ice has made a formal commitment for an additional $20,000 after this year's tournament for the skate house. So after the 2018 tournament, there will be a total of $100,000 that Black Ice would have donated to the city, earmarked to this project. So we're extremely excited to potentially get this project going. But, you know, one of the things that we are extremely excited about is what this tournament has turned into. It's turned into a community event that I think went beyond our furthest imagination. Not only is it bringing attention to the historic White Park and the facility there, also the history of hockey in general in Concord and at White Park. But also the event has, filled hotel rooms, is a top 5 probably weekend for our bars and restaurants in the city of Concord, and with a lot of sponsorship help, has allowed us to bring some activity, events, shuttle services, highlighting the downtown area, which you guys have put so much effort into. It's also created an opportunity for us to involve the community. This is an event that we have 100 teams, 650 players that come from all different areas of the country to play here during that weekend of Black Ice. But it's allowed us to bring youth groups, booster groups, other nonprofits together for opportunities for them to participate in a city event like this. And so, as we said, it's important for us tonight to acknowledge that we've donated $80,000 to the city towards this project. It's also important for us to basically acknowledge and state that we've given over $300,000 back to the community in the 6 years of the event. What I have here, and I'd like you potentially to pass this around, if you could, is just a recap of what Black Ice has done for the 6 years of the tournament. These are the financial donations that the nonprofit has given back to the community. Well over $20,000 to $25,000 to booster clubs with local high schools. It's given close to $160,000 of revenue to the Everett Arena that has gone towards projects at the arena. $15,000 for several new signs and projects at Rollins Park and White Park. Different youth hockey organizations, $6,000. Concord Youth Hockey Association, which obviously is based out of Everett Arena, over $20,000 for equipment programs, different items that they would need to try to attract new people to playing hockey. So, you know, as we have talked about, Black Ice, we're a nonprofit. We want to do things and work with the city and other organizations to continue. Expand. Our mission in the beginning was to expand ice skating opportunities in the city of Concord or the general area. I think it really is a lot more that it's more of a community involvement and real enhancement to the area. And we really appreciate everyone's involvement, and we appreciate the ability to run the event, in the park, in the city of Concord. So we thank you very much for the opportunity.
I think it's our chance to actually thank you. First of all, thank you first to your commitment to the community. And I think it's really important that what you brought here tonight shows that it's far beyond just one weekend. This is a year-round impact that you're making. Just going down through some of the organizations that have directly benefited financially, but also the indirect relationship you have with a lot of the folks downtown and surrounding hotels, restaurants, et cetera. So,
yeah, we obviously can pay back some of these booster clubs to be involved, but there's over 100 people that just donate their time throughout the year and throughout that weekend to get the job done. A lot of these guys are behind us tonight, but you couldn't do it without that group as well.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
2 points. You can see, Council, the top line, the Douglas Everett Arena advertising, that translates directly into revenue to the arena budget, which then allows the city to keep the rates down for the folks who play hockey. So there's a big advantage there. And I should point out, too, that our public-private partnership with the Black Ice Pond Hockey Group, that's the model that we use when we talk to other people, whether it's in the community or outside the community, how to do a public-private partnership. So I congratulate you and the group back there for keeping up with your end of the bargain. We try to keep up with our end, and you certainly do on your end, so thank you very much.
Well, it's going to be up to some of these booster clubs to keep involved, so we can run it, but I don't think we can shovel snow and put up everything and take everything down every year. But we enjoy being involved in it, but we enjoy also getting people involved in it as well.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to say thank you for being a good neighbor. The Black Ice Hockey Tournament team has been extremely sensitive to the neighborhood in Ward 4 around White Park. There have been concerns expressed. You've always addressed them politely and expeditiously, and just been great folks to work with. And I think that the people who live around the park generally feel that if they have a concern, it's been heard and it's been addressed. So thank you for that too.
Thank you. I mean, it's never been our. We understand the park is owned by everyone in the community, and a lot of people have concerns over what happens there. Like I said, we want to make sure we make it a better place, and never wanted to ruffle anyone's feathers. We like I said, we really appreciate showcasing the park when you have an opportunity to, because it's a great place.
Thanks, so.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Now, if you want to pan the camera back to the audience, they can all well wave and see they can all tell their spouses I was really at the meeting, see? All right, that takes us to item 13 and, excuse me, 14, and if you could all join me in welcoming our friends from Citizens Bank. Absolutely. Come on up. Cheers. Hey, Doug, if she brings the check, she sits.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I'm Katie Graff, the Assistant Finance Director in the city's Finance Department. Brought up.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I'm Doug Ross. I'm the Purchasing Manager for the city.
So about a year ago, the Finance Department began participating in a commercial card program offered by Citizens Bank. The program allows us to pay vendors using a purchasing card rather than issuing a physical check. The purchasing card is basically a credit card that gives us online access to manage all of the city accounts. The Citizens Bank commercial card program provides us with an annual rebate based on the amount spent using that card. And the rebate is based on a tiered structure. The higher the spend, not surprisingly, the greater the rebate rate. Citizens' rebate schedule last year ranged from 1 to 1.25%. We used the card last year to pay a single vendor, Casella, paying about 160 invoices, totaling about $3 million. We're currently looking to add other vendors to the process because not all vendors accept the card, and Citizens Bank has increased the rebate percentage for the current year. So Citizens is here tonight to present the city's first rebate check. In addition to Doug, I'd just like to quickly thank Mike Jakey, the city treasurer, for helping to implement the program, and also recognize Gretchen Wood, who's our fiscal tech, who processed all of the invoice payments. So unless there are any questions, let Citizens Bank do their presentation.
Sure. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves, that'd be great.
I'll start.
Yeah.
My name is Glenn Rowley. I'm the Director of Government Banking at Citizens Bank.
I'm Ryan Caponeri. I'm a Corporate Payment Specialist with Citizens Bank.
Chris Therian, Relationship Manager, Citizens Bank Government Banking Group.
So I just want to start and say thank you for the relationship that we have, the banking relationship. We've been working with the city for a number of years, and it's, as I look at it, a mutually beneficial relationship. And, you know, over the years, we've been able to make such improvements to be able to make banking better for you. And, you know, this is a good example of something that, you know, we were able to bring to the city, and the city's been able to recognize the opportunity to be able to generate more income. And so, you know, I want to thank you for that. I'm very proud that we're able to continue to help you guys with your banking, and I'll pass it on to Chris.
We're very excited to be here tonight to present the city with a check for $36,036.79. Wow. I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank Katie Graff, Doug Ross, Gretchen Wood, and Mike Jakey for their continued efforts in making this program such a success. We also look forward to presenting the city with an additional check next year with their continued efforts in paying more vendors with card and our increase in rebate. We hope to have a larger check next year for the city. So thank you for your time tonight.
That's great. Thank you very, very much.
Would you mind coming down so we can have a picture?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great.
Everybody want to get the picture?
No, I think.
Yeah. You're the face.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll keep this.
Great.
We'll come back next year.
Thank you. Just let me know if Doug Russ goes shopping or anything.
So if you give me 30 seconds, I'll set this up for
Okay.
Great.
Thank you again, by the way. Okay, next we're going to have the presentation by the Merrimack River Greenway Trail project, and we're going to just take about a 30-second recess while the manager sets it up so we actually have some visuals.
Goodness, the IT
You
department.
don't mind if I lean over your shoulder? No, let's get me started. Okay, so we go to slideshow. From the beginning.
Awesome.
You're on, and then you just
Touch anywhere?
it'll go, but if you need to go back and forth down here.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Great.
Okay, we're back. Welcome, Mr. Lemieux. I'll just start by, you can introduce your friend, but we'll start by saying, don't feel any pressure. The first two presentations both brought checks.
We were hoping you'd sign one over to us.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Dick Lemieux. I'm the president currently of the Friends of the Merrimack River Greenway Trail, and with me is Kelly Ovitpuck, who is our secretary and also a trustee on the board.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
As am I. I've been told that I have 3 to 5 minutes, and so a brilliant person once told me that the key to a successful presentation is be brief, be brilliant, and then be gone.
It's mine.
So I'm going for 2. I'm going for 2 out of 3 tonight. So very quickly, I want to describe the status of the Greenway Trail as we see it. We've been organized as a board of trustees for about 7 years, and we've been laboring hard to get not very far. So starting with the Merrimack River Greenway Trail can be broken into 3 major components. The first is a Riverside Greenway Trail that will stretch from the cornfields near Loudon Road down to Pembroke. It's 5.8 miles long. The second is currently, because of new developments, is a 6.7 mile rail trail that will stretch from the Boscawen town line to downtown Concord. And the third major component is one that we're sort of dreaming about, and it's a signature pedestrian bridge across the Merrimack River. There are alternatives, but we're not thinking about alternatives right now. We're thinking about making big plans. And this trail will connect with the Northern Rail Trail, which currently goes from Boscawen, from a cornfield in Boscawen to West Lebanon, and it's 57 miles long. And it'll connect to our trail, via a 1/2 mile long rail trail that is yet to be built, that is also part of the abandoned Pan Am rail corridor that just became available. So moving with current progress, the first phase we hope will be underway next year, and it will build a 100-foot long boardwalk and a 150-foot long trail on the ground in Terrell Park. And for those of you who remember when we got the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant from Senator Shaheen, that was 2 years ago today. And we've been struggling with design and environmental permits ever since. So we're hopeful that this will be built next year. Phase 2 will be a continuation of that trail to the south through Terrell Park, about 1/3 of a mile. Phase 3 will be something that we will launch when the first 2 phases are underway. Our group will probably get involved with fundraising for phase 3, which will extend the boardwalk and then a trail through the cornfields to Loudon Road. A future phase will be 4.5 miles essentially from Manchester Street to Pembroke. Another future phase will go from the pier spans to the cornfields, or to the bridge if there is one, and that will be, we hope that will be built in conjunction with the Opportunity Corridor and the Store Street extension, pending negotiations that are underway. But the main reason we're here tonight is because of an opportunity that we didn't know existed when we started on this. In fact, we didn't know this opportunity existed until late last year, and it became available this year, and that is a 6.3 mile long rail corridor that has been officially abandoned by Pan Am Rail, and it is available right now to be purchased and be converted into a public facility. 5.8 miles of that is in Concord, and the other 1/2 mile, as I said earlier, is in Boscawen. So that would connect downtown Concord with West Lebanon by building those two sections, a 5.8-mile long trail in Concord and a half-mile long trail in Boscawen. So that brings us to a petition that we started when we found out that the corridor was available, but that the state had no current plans to purchase it. Want me to do it?
Unless anybody wants to stay on this slide. This is the fun slide. I'll just tell you now, this is the fun slide. So you can see here that we've been working really hard. There's a lot of different sections, a lot of different phases in that southern half, and we knew it was going to be a long road. You know, we were thinking decades, and we're trying to convince everybody, you know, help us, fund us on these little sections one at a time. So when the board heard that this long section, this over 6-mile section of rail corridor was being abandoned by Pan Am, this was like manna from heaven to the board. This was amazing. This was a great opportunity. Pan Am filed its notice of intent to abandon last November and officially abandoned with the Surface Transportation Board this past March. And immediately the board started brainstorming, how do we move this? What do we need to do as a board to take advantage of this incredible opportunity? We put some feelers out to the Department of Transportation to see what kind of support we had, and the answer was very, very lukewarm response. This was not and is not on the Department of Transportation's radar or priority list. And so we realized we were going to have to push it. And at a board meeting, I think in April, we had this idea of putting together a petition so that we could actually demonstrate in writing that there was public support for this project to do a rail trail in Concord, in the capital of the state. And we launched our petition in paper format at the S&W Bike Swap, which was held on May 20th. So that was basically one day that we were at the bike swap collecting signatures on a petition to support, and basically just had a basic statement of support. We explained to people who came up to our table what was going on, and that we were just asking for whether people would support the state acquiring that corridor. We then continued to collect paper signatures at Market Day, so we had 3 days there in June, and then finally our last effort at collecting paper signatures was National Night Out in August. And we collected about 600 signatures, I think, on the paper petition. We launched an online petition August 1st, and you can see we collected over another 1,000 signatures online, and we continue to collect signatures. And here, Dick's put together a really nice breakdown of where those signatures are coming from and people who say that they support. Would you just go to the next slide, Dick? Because I think even more interesting, and I hope that you all get a chance to look. I think the petition was circulated to the counselors in advance. I hope you get a chance to look at the actual petition. I don't know about you, but I cannot read that from here. But it's a synopsis of some of the comments that we've gotten with those petition signatures about how excited people are to actually have a paved bike path and trail that's accessible in Concord. So we're here tonight to ask for the city to really join us and help lead that effort and push the state on this, because it is a really unique opportunity.
Thank you.
With that, we're perfectly willing to answer questions.
Council Sherlock.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you both for being here, and Dick, it's always good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How much is Pan Am asking for the right-of-way?
That's not the way it works. Pan Am will...
How's it work?
Sit. Which one did you have? The state of New Hampshire has a right of first refusal on the property. So the Pan Am was to sit back and wait for someone to make an offer. And when someone makes an offer, then the state will have 90 days to respond to that offer, to make it good, to essentially exercise the right of first refusal. So one first step might be to order an appraisal, which is usually the first step when the state decides to purchase a railroad right-of-way. So we have ways of estimating how much it's worth, and the estimates run anywhere between $1 million and $2 million, just depending on how you look at it.
Dick, with this, I know a lot of the route from Bosco into West Lebanon is snowmobiles in the winter. Would that be the same for this section of going through Concord?
That would be up to council. My advice would be not to allow snowmobiles if it's paved, because snowmobiles can damage pavement when there isn't enough snow on the ground. So if it's not paved, then that would be perfectly fine. We propose that it be paved because paved trails will attract so many more users.
Cross country and everything, sure. Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilor Todd?
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, thank you both for being here, and I want to say that I appreciate your efforts and everyone on the Friends of the Merrimack River Greenway Trail over the years. You know, this is reminding folks this is you're volunteering to do this, to help to provide this, what I think is going to be a terrific amenity to the city, so I really appreciate it. I think the telling for me was the comments that you showed on the petition, and I was surprised to see that many folks from outside of the area that were going to use the trail, and that showed a great interest in it, and the comments seemed universal. So, you know, anytime you start to think about how much could this potentially cost in maintenance down the road, I would think that that would be obviously offset by, you know, the amount of users you would get, which leads to my question, actually. My recollection from some discussion a while back on TPAC, Transportation Policy Advisory Committee, was that trails can get, help me out, 400 users a day. A trail like this, what are you anticipating in terms of number of daily users of the trail?
Yeah, we at first we were estimating using trip generation rates that were published, that were done for the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, are published. It's based on how many people live within a certain range of the certain distance from the trail, and how many users a day. And based on those factors, we estimate that the trail, when it's of any significant length, half the length of Concord, let's say, that it'll attract 400 users a day. And the planning commissions throughout the state have been doing traffic counts on trails around the state, and they verified that most of the trails are attracting around 400 or so users per day during the week, and on weekends they see usage in the range of 900 to 1,000 people a day. That's pedestrians, bicyclists, runners, rollerbladers, everybody.
Follow-up? Thank you. Given that and the reaction that you've obviously gotten from the public about this, and kind of as a follow-up to Councilor Shurtleff's question to you, what did you envision as the best sort of next step? Were you thinking of something like, requesting the mayor or the city manager to go and speak with the folks in Boscawen, and then go and speak to the commissioner and try to get this up on the radar, or work out some kind of arrangement, or what do you think is the next best step?
Well, you're putting words in my mouth, but you're pretty good at it. Yeah, I think what we'd like to see is the city taking the next step in the process that we've started, and that is, showing that there's public excitement about the project. And we can only go so far as residents. I have a long history with the Department of Transportation, and I can tell you that they pay much more attention to municipalities than they do to individuals and to residents. So we've sort of started the ball rolling with this petition. We knew that we had strong support from the community. We know that from talking to people at market days and other places that a lot of people like these trails. We know from counts that are taken elsewhere that they're very popular. So I guess what we'd like to do is we'd like to have the city take the next step in underscoring to the state how important this is, and that for the residents of the state, it really can't afford to just sit. The land can't afford to just sit unused for 10, 20, or 30 years, which is possibly what would happen if someone doesn't make an offer that would stimulate the state to make a counteroffer. So yeah, if we could get the council, the city, the mayor, the manager could approach the state and see if we can get this on the front burner during the next 10-year plan, the next 2-year cycle of transportation improvement projects.
Thank you. Councilor Kretovic and then Councilor Nine.
Thank you, Your Honor. I had the good fortune of traveling with both Dick Lemieux and Kelly, thank you, Kelly, along this trail. And this is incredible. We went with a gentleman from the Department of Corrections because some of the property does go through their land. He was very forthright in saying this is all you have to do so that it keeps prisoners separated from the public. It's a very doable project. You know, Dick was saying to have this sit here for 10, 20 years and go untouched. I can tell you that's already sat for 10, 20 years and gone untouched, having gone through the briar bush in order to get to the other end. We've got an incredible asset sitting in our community. When we've talked about reconnecting to the river, this runs right along the river. It is absolutely gorgeous, stunning, and people would be amazed that we have this treasure that none of us ever get to see. It's spectacular.
Thank you. Councilor Nine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dick, is there precedent in any other community or state for the rail owners to gift the lines to cities and, exchange for something,
Wouldn't that be awesome? I've never heard of a case where a railroad has given property to anyone. You might think that they would, but I've been told that rail companies these days make more money off selling real estate than they do on transporting freight. That's how important right-of-way is to rail companies. So, they have real estate sections that are bigger than their freight movement sections. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
Unless you know somebody, put us in touch with. Yeah, you would think that they would do that.
Well, if I could follow up on it, what strikes me is we keep talking about it being abandoned, and I think of abandoned property as something that is no longer of value to the person who has abandoned it. Do the rail companies actively market this property for other purposes? We mentioned we don't want it sitting, dormant for too long, but if it's dormant for 20 years, what's to say it's not going to be, unused for 20 more years? So I guess I'm trying to gauge, the urgency compared to, other financial needs.
Part of the issue is the danger that we have right now, the 6.3 mile corridor, and the danger that will get broken up into pieces, which is exactly what happened with the Concord Claremont line. And now they're working with approximately 80 different property owners to try and pull those pieces back together so that they can actually build a rail trail on it. So part of the urgency is just making sure that we keep it intact for that kind of purpose, because it is a unique opportunity, and because, like Jennifer said, it's beautiful, it's stunning. I mean, we've been working on the southern section, and working that southern section, you really have to have some vision to see what the trail is going to look like. But as soon as we were walking on this rail corridor, immediately you can picture it, and it's beautiful. It goes along farmland, it goes along the river. It is a hugely underutilized resource. So part of it is that, and part of it is keeping it intact so that we can use it for this type of use.
If I could reflect to your question on abandonment. Abandonment, when it comes to railroad property, is a formal exercise that rail companies go through. A railroad can't be abandoned until it's approved by the Surface Transportation Board at a national level, even a small spur line. So they go through a formal application process, and it takes about a year to do. So this process has been in play for over a year and a half, and it was approved. The Surface Transportation Board approved the abandonment earlier this year. So that process is complete. So basically it's a statement by the rail company that says we no longer have plans to use this for transportation. It has no transportation use or value. And so then they're allowed to sell it, according to the whatever the rules are in place in the state.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
So to follow up on Councilor Nine's question, just firsthand what happens here. When I worked in Londonderry many years ago, we had the same situation with the B&M Railroad connection between downtown Derry and Manchester. And B&M decided to abandon that rail line. And then what happened is the property owners along the rail line started acquiring to the center line all the different pieces. So as they started into that process, and the state was making us aware of that, we worked as a community. I was the point person working with the state to convince the state of New Hampshire to buy that whole section between Derry and Manchester for two purposes. One is potential future rail travel, but at the same time, the thought was there might be opportunity for some sort of light rail system somewhere along the line between urban corridors. And if once you lost that section of road or right-of-way, you would never be able to get it back again. You'd never be able to afford to be able to assemble. And there wasn't a whole lot of excitement about eminent domain back then, just as there isn't now. So actually, we worked with the state and got the state to acquire that property from B&M, and it worked out. That corridor still exists today. So I envision no reason that same thing couldn't happen here.
And if I could, that Londonderry section has already seen 3 construction projects. There are 2 more phases yet to go, and they see users on it every day. People walking on it, bicycling on it.
Hotels were built specifically adjacent to that rail, that rail line, so that people could have access to that, and it made connections. And so.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Mr. Manager, are you saying that the state actually did pay for or purchase that line? And how long ago was that?
Late 80s, early 90s. So there's a long history of doing this. Because they saw it also as an opportunity for a connection. Remember, 28 was still only 2 lanes. It's still only 2 lanes, I think, at this point right now between exit 5 and up towards getting towards the airport. So they saw that as an important connection.
Councilor Iliff.
Yes, Your Honor. I was going to ask you if it would be an honor to make a motion now that for the city administration, maybe with the consultation of the Recreation Advisory Committee, to work with our friends in Bosquen about making a presentation to DOT for the state's acquisition of this right-of-way.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. I'm with you. I just wonder, do we need to wait for Bosquen? I mean, I think what I'm hearing is the biggest fear we have is that this all gets broken up. That's because when trying to put it back together is very difficult, and I'm familiar with the line I think you're referring to. So time is of the essence to make sure that people understand that there's, and this petition is incredibly helpful. It looks like a lot of effort went into this, but to show that there's a community interest, and I think that after tonight, I suspect when people watch this, you'll see a whole lot more signatures pile up here. So I don't mind talking to Bosquen, but I mean, do we want to wait?
When I say talk to Bosquen, I think it's no more than a phone call to the town manager and saying, this is what we're doing. If you want to join us, but we're going to move ahead with this as a courtesy.
Okay.
And nothing more.
Got it. Okay, we have motions and seconded. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Your Honor. If the state continues to be lukewarm, do we want to wait for another meeting, or do we want to have a second alternative? And I'm thinking, like, what about conservation funds? Just throw that out there. I mean, if we're going to wait for the manager to come back to us with the state's response, and then we can take it up then. Or do we want to say, here's our second alternative? Or do we not want to say?
My initial gut response is to let's take the first step to talk to the state, see where they're at. I think we need probably some time to think about what our other opportunities might be.
Right.
And then come back to the council to report back to what we heard and where we might go.
Just follow up, which is kind of off track, because Pan Am also has property on this side of the river. Abandoned building that creates a nuisance for Concord Police Department and state property.
Right.
I wonder if we couldn't talk to the state about that as well, since it's right beside state property and right beside a city right-of-way, about seeing what they can do with Pan Am too. And they might, I don't know if they're going to need it for the highway expansion, but that could be a kind of a carrot as well if they want to wrap that into it.
Okay. Council Cohen?
Anyone else? Okay, we have motion's been seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you taking the time and all the efforts that you're
Thank
putting
you.
in.
Thank you for your time
We
and
have
your
a printed
support.
version of the petition that we'd like you to have.
We all have, well, everyone has, I have a copy.
For Janice.
I did, whoever took the time to write all the comments, I really appreciate that. My favorite was just this 3-letter, let's do it. You might know that person.
Yeah.
So, I think the message was well received.
Thank you very much, Council.
All right. No more checks, no more presentations. So that takes us to our consent agenda. We have 2 items that have been removed from the consent agenda, item 37 and item 44. We have item 45, which Councilor Herzog has recused himself from. And with those, do we have a motion?
Excuse me, Your Honor, I'm sorry. That would be me, Your Honor.
I was getting mixed up.
I'm actually I'm sitting on the board of the Pennacook Community Center currently.
We're going to do both.
Your Honor, as required in 1-6-4, I need to state why I'm recusing myself. My wife is on the board of Pennacook Community Center.
Okay, with the 2 items that have been removed from consent and with the recusal for item 45, we have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Any other changes while we're at it? See none? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the ayes have it. Takes us to our public hearings this evening. Madam Clerk, item 58, please.
It's an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title V, Administrative Code, Chapter 35, Classification and Compensation Plan, to add the position of Environmental Compliance Manager at the Water Treatment Plant Division.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, as part of the General Services succession planning efforts, the Water Treatment Division prepared a succession plan to address the anticipated retirement of a laboratory technician position. With increased regulation on water, source water quality conditions, source water protection, and recently cyanobacteria monitoring, the General Service Department planned to make this personnel change upon the retirement of the current laboratory technician position. That has taken place, so we'd like to move forward, make this realignment. It's an integral part of an important piece of the succession plan, allow us to, the division to continue to provide quality service to the community and remain a leader in the field of water protection.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the manager? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to testify? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, item 50B, please.
Is a resolution accepting and appropriating the sum of $852,591.97 in previously collected street damage fees as a transfer to the Highway Reserve Fund retroactive to June 30th.
Mr. Manager.
Our members of the council, after years of suffering through continued damage by excavation cuts in the newly paved streets throughout Concord, City Council amended the street excavation ordinance in 2009. The amended ordinance introduced several new features, including a new fee structure with street damage charges and specific enforcement measures and protected street components, all of which are missing from the previous ordinance requirements. The amended ordinance would be enforced starting in 2007 construction season. Shortly after the enactment in 2010, the Liberty Utilities, formerly Energy North Natural Gas, filed a suit against the city alleging the ordinance amendment was not valid under New Hampshire law. Although the case was active before the courts, fees for the street excavation damage were nonetheless assessed and collected. On June 16, 2017, the New Hampshire Supreme Court issued an order finding the city's excavation fee ordinance to be valid under New Hampshire state law through tremendous work of Jim Kennedy and Ed Roberge, city engineer. Fees for street damages collected since the enactment of the amended ordinance in 2010 can now be transferred to the Highway Reserve Fund for their intended purpose, which is street paving. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the manager? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to testify on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, item 50C, please.
Is a resolution appropriating the sum of $120,000 as a transfer to Highway Reserve for the road improvement program.
Mr. Manager.
So based on that previous discussion that I just mentioned, the funding source for this appropriation is anticipated street cutting excavation fees in 2018. So these are more, the fees that we just talked about were ones that we've actually collected. These are the ones we anticipate to collect for the rest of this fiscal year. Glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the Manager? So these fees, are these anticipated in the future as well?
This should take place for the next 3 to 4 years based on the work schedule of road cuts and projects that the gas company has planned. So yes.
Okay.
But we'd look at it every time when we look at the budget going forward.
Got it. Anyone else? Seeing none? Okay, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to testify on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, item 50D, please.
A resolution deauthorizing the sum of $34,000 in bond authorizations from the Stormwater Improvements Project, CIP number 83, authorizing the issuance of bonds and notes for up to $34,000 and appropriating said funds for the Exit 16 Mountain Road, Shawmut Street Roundabout Project, CIP number 24.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manager.
Part of the fiscal year 2018 capital improvement program included stormwater infrastructure improvement projects citywide, including drainage infrastructure along Shawmut Street. 2018 stormwater improvement projects were advertised earlier this year, and favorable bids were received. Where surplus bond funds proposed for stormwater infrastructure improvements are available, repurposing those funds for additional drainage improvements at the roundabout project is an appropriate use. All work programs in the fiscal year 2018 stormwater work plan will be completed as specified. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to testify? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And for the last item, Madam Clerk, item 50E, please.
Is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title I, General Code, Chapter 1, Government Organization, Article 1-3, Miscellaneous Regulations, Ward Lines.
I could attempt this one, but it'd be better to have Mr. Kennedy come and speak to this briefly.
Welcome, Mr. Kennedy.
Good evening. Yes, this ordinance that we're requesting here is transferring the Boys and Girls Club, which is currently in Ward 3, to Ward 4, and the Green Street Community Center right behind us here, which is currently in Ward 4, to Ward 5. We're doing this because there is a requirement that polling places are required to be in the wards of the city. For past elections, the city clerk has employed another statute that allows the city clerk to have polling places outside of the ward to the extent that there's no other place that we can find for a suitable polling place. We all know that the Green Street Community Center is an excellent polling place in Ward 5, and we all know that the Boys and Girls Club, which is actually city property, and we lease to the Boys and Girls Club, and contained in that lease is a requirement that that be used for a polling place if the city needs it as a polling place. These are very suitable, accessible, ADA accessible polling places in the city. And but for some circumstances of not having any other polling places in Ward 4 or Ward 5 respectively, we're doing a minor redistricting around Ward 5 to encompass the Green Street Community Center. Excuse me. We'll have 18 voters who we've all notified here in the city of this change. There's been no objection, at least to my knowledge, of this change. One of the requirements for redistricting, as you may recall from the last decennial census, is that we can't have a deviation that's outside the scope, i.e. one ward extremely smaller or larger than another ward, and the 18 voters here has no impact on that, de minimis at any rate. And the Ward 3 to Ward 4 change, there are no voters involved there. There's no people. It's just basically putting a circle around the Boys and Girls Club and calling it Ward 4. So it suits our purpose. We worked with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General's office to accomplish this. And we think that going forward, at least until the next decennial census, this makes sense for the city to adopt this ordinance.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Ms. Kennedy? Seeing none, thank you very much. This time we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to testify on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. That takes us to our action phase. Item 51, Madam Clerk.
Is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title V, Administrative Code, Chapter 35, Classification and Compensation Plan, to add the position of Environmental Compliance Manager at the Water Treatment Plant Division.
We have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, item 52, please.
A resolution accepting and appropriating the sum of $852,591.97 in previously collected street damage fees as a transfer to the Highway Reserve Fund.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? Councilor Hirschlag.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to point out, this is where having an exceptional legal department really makes a tremendous amount of difference. This is a case that was handled in-house by our legal department and city solicitor over a significant number of years and wound up all the way up to the state Supreme Court. It's my understanding that Manchester used outside counsel at a cost of approximately $500,000. Had we used outside counsel, we would have only had half the revenues available that we currently have available. I think this is a situation where it's important to recognize the fantastic and tremendous job our legal department does for our city. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Interesting enough, I did not know that Councilor Schlag was going to share those thoughts, and I wanted to actually share similar thoughts. About 10 years ago or so, there was a discussion on whether or not we should add a deputy city solicitor. I think at that point we did. And one of the reasons that we cited for doing that was to bring a lot of the work that we were contracting out in-house. And I think that this is just but one of many, many examples that we could give to show what a good decision we actually made to bring that work in-house so that I think the taxpayers are beneficiaries of not only Mr. Kennedy's work, but Ms. Patrick's work and the whole legal team in the solicitor's office. So job well done. Can thank you, Councilor Slade, for your comments as well. So every once in a while we get one right. This is a good one. With that, anyone else? Seeing none, ready for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Having received the necessary 2/3, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, item 53, please.
A resolution appropriating the sum of $120,000 as a transfer to Highway Reserve for the road improvement program.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Having received the necessary 2/3, the motion is approved. Madam Clerk, item 54, please.
A resolution deauthorizing the sum of $34,000 in bond authorizations from the Stormwater Improvements Project, CIP number 83, authorizing the issuance of bonds and notes for up to $34,000, and appropriating said funds for the Exit 16 Mountain Road, Shawmut Street Roundabout Project, CIP number 24.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made, seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? Seeing none, I just want to state I happen to go through Exit 16 roundabout quite often these days, and I think I made it through in record time the other day. It's a very highly functioning roundabout, and I know we have a little bit more pain to go while they do the curbing, but I think this was exactly what we anticipated when we approved this item. So sorry for the inconvenience during the summer, but well done. Anyone else? See none? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Having received necessary 2/3, the motion is approved. Madam Clerk, item 55, please.
An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title I, General Code, Chapter 1, Government Organization, Article 1-3, Miscellaneous Regulations, Ward Lines.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the ayes have it. Madam Clerk, take us to reports, please.
Item 56 is a report on the new recreation building, Skate House at White Park, from the Parks and Recreation Director.
Mr. Manager.
Members of the council, ask Mr. Gill to come forward. give us an update on where we are and next steps. I can talk to it also.
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager.
All right, before you start, can you tell me what the date is?
Today's date?
Yeah.
September 11th.
Okay. Your memo is dated October 29th. I didn't know if you were looking into the future.
That's probably when I wrote it.
He's traveled back in time.
October 29th?
He's so far ahead of his work.
Seeing if everybody was paying attention, so I apologize for that.
It was fast. Welcome.
Just a quick update. Over the past couple of years, we've had a lot of discussion on different options for this Skate House. Last year, you approved option 3, and we've been working with the Turner Group on final design. We're about 25% designed, and working with the city manager, my recommendation is to work with the purchasing folks and to create an RFP to look at hiring a construction manager. The benefits of hiring a construction manager is to actually work with some local vendors to make sure we have a price not to exceed. As a reminder, this project as we move forward is 50% private donations. With the help of Black Ice, we have $80,000 in the bank, so to speak. We have about another $5,000 from individual donations that we have separate for the Skate House. But as we move forward this fall and winter, it would be really nice to have a number that we can tell the community that we need to raise. And without going to that next step, right now it's $450,000. The Turner Group thinks it could be a little less, but until we actually go out and talk to some vendors, it's kind of pie in the sky. So my recommendation is to authorize us to work with the city manager and the purchasing folks to move forward so we can find out a number not to exceed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manager?
So if I could, we essentially want to do the same thing we did with Main Street here, which is instead of going to 100% design, putting it out to bid, getting the bids, and then start redesigning to get to the price we want, actually have H.L. Turner, which has been working with us pro bono.
Yes.
And work with the construction manager to go forward together, make sure we have a properly priced project, but with the quality that we want. So then we get that together, bring it to the council, make sure that you're okay with it, but also at the same time work with the Black Ice Pond folks to make sure that they're okay with it, and because they'd be raising the other half the dollars, and then they would actually go out and use that product to help with their fundraising. And then when we get to the point where we have enough dollars all together, we'd come forward and be ready for construction. Ideally, I'd like to start, if we could get going in the spring, I would like to go going with construction in the spring. That would be the plan. So if you approve it tonight, I'd like to be able to move forward with those steps.
Thank you, Your Honor. In the past, I guess we've hired the construction manager after some initial bids on Main Street. And I believe, I'm not sure how we did it with the the steam conversion project. We have a construction manager up at the Heights for the community center. Right. So what assurances do we have that the number that we come up with the construction manager won't limit the overage that we've seen? We've gone over bid, we've gone over estimates in the past, and they've been able to make some reductions, but we've still wound up over the initial estimates. Are we at a point where this precedes the initial estimates and this is what we're going to base our, or do we already have an estimate and we're trying to work within that framework?
Because we're only, if I could, because we're only at 25% design, we don't have an estimate. We have ideas about per square footage cost, but it's something like this, it's really in the details that are going to determine what the overall cost is. Plus, we're looking at other elements of the project. We have other elements that potentially we could do improvements to the pond at the same time. So by doing it this way and working with local contractors, because we'd like to keep this as local as possible, and we already are working with H.L. Turner on it, we think we can come up with a better price that's predictable. In this case, because we're also out there fundraising with the private sector, I think it's really important to get a true price that we're as sure as you possibly can that we can build it for that price.
Your Honor, if I could follow up. So just so I understand this, we're bringing in the construction manager much earlier in the process, so we have a much better opportunity that the numbers that we come up with will actually be the numbers that will be the cost of the project.
We think those folks would have the best idea in terms of labor and materials costs that are currently going on in the market right now. And tying them together with our design engineers, we can make sure that the design and those costs are being worked together at the same time. So you don't come up with this fantastic architectural design drawing, and then the contractors tell, well, if you had done 5 different things, I could have cut the price for you by 25%. We'd rather know that day one instead of day 100.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. I just want to add a couple things. First of all, just a little clarification. Black Ice Hockey Association is going to play an important role. Obviously, they've already committed just this evening for another $20,000 after this particular 2018 season, which brings their grand total to $100,000, which is a significant donation. But I've been working with some folks in our community who have showed an interest looking to fundraise for this project. So getting that number is really important, so that when we go and when they go to try to fundraise, we have a story to tell. But the other thing I want to point out too is it is a skate house, and we've referred to it as that, but I thought it was important that the way you titled your memo is the new multi-purpose recreation building at Way Park. And I think it's important to recognize that this will be a multi-purpose recreational building so that it can be used during not only the winter with skates, but it is located adjacent right by the pool and the playground, and it can be used during the other seasons of the year as well. So I was glad that you titled this in such a way that it sends a much, I think, stronger message to the community that this is a building for everyone.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Do we have a motion? Move approval. Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? And the ayes have it. Thank you very much. We are going to take a 2-minute recess.
We're coming back out of recess.
Point of information, Your Honor.
Yes.
Can somebody explain to me why the mayor is not presiding?
Because he's not here.
The mayor is not here right this moment. I'm going to be presiding over this one item until he comes back.
Am I correct in understanding that the mayor has a conflict on this interest?
I don't know if he has a conflict on this interest.
Who said that?
It's my understanding that our rules require that if there's a conflict, it be identified.
I don't know whether he has a conflict.
I would like to cite, make a motion on 6B. I believe Councilor Cohn has a conflict on this matter. Mayor's firm represents Intralot, which is a gambling interest. Councilor Cohn's daughter works for the mayor's firm. According to the definition of family, the mayor's daughter,
The mayor doesn't have a daughter.
I'm sorry, the councilor's daughter, he would have a conflict because of that issue.
Well, because there are no items of Keno in the state of New Hampshire, could you explain to me how somebody can have a conflict when there are no Keno contracts or nothing in existence for Keno at this point?
We're discussing the issue of whether or not Keno should go forward and how it should go forward.
Sure.
It's fun being on the side.
Just a point of order, Your Honor, there's a motion pending. If that motion is not seconded, does the matter not fail and that'd be the end of the subject?
Yes.
It would be.
Okay, well, the motion is out there and I haven't heard a second.
He's the chair. Would you like me to answer the question?
I would now, because I'd like, that's the procedure, and I'm just saying that we don't need to go into a discussion if the motion fails.
I'll leave it up to you, Mr. Mayor, if you want to.
Councilor Sherwood's right, but just so everybody understands.
Yeah.
So I represent a company called Intralot. Intralot, so when you go buy your lottery ticket, the machine which you buy it from is, the vendor is Intralot, okay? They do not have a state contract for Keno, but there is potential in the future that they may have a contract. It may be somebody else. They may or may not get it. But for purposes of just full transparency, I thought it was best to completely remove myself so that there's no question. I have no interest in Keno whatsoever. There is no contract right now. I do have an interest in lottery. I encourage you all to go buy a lottery ticket. It's for the kids, right? But that is the reason why I thought I'd just step away. And so in terms of Councilor Cohen, there's no contract, so there really is no possibility, I think Councilor Cohen would even have a stretch. So I'm not sure where Councilor Hirschlag is going on this, but unless you know that they already have a contract and something that I don't, then, but that's why I stepped away. And that's why I'll continue
and I
to
appreciate
step
your
away.
explanation. Yet the motion fails for lack of a second, but also the fact is there actually is no conflict anyway, so it's moot for both those issues.
So if I may, if there's no conflict, then why is the mayor stepping aside?
Just in case sometime in the future it might turn up, because I'm sure, Councilor, if that were to happen in the future, you would take offense to the fact that the mayor presided over this item. If a year from now, Keno passed and then the company bid, then you would probably bring up the fact that the mayor presided over this item and why didn't he recuse himself at that point, so that's why he's doing it. So, to me, it makes perfect sense. But anyway, for lack of a second, it fails. So item number 57, new business. Mr. Manager.
So you see, and we attached it just so you'd have it in front of you again, the letter from the city solicitor regarding the setting up the time frame as required by the RSA for the Keno. So you need to determine a date that needs to be held on or before October 23rd. Since you've already voted to put it on the ballot as a referendum, you need to have this meeting set up. So tonight's the only purpose is determining what that date should be.
So if I may, before another counselor chimes in, I asked a higher authority what a good date would be, and Janice suggested October 16th as a possible meeting date because we have a council meeting on the 10th because the October 9th is a holiday. And so if we were to have a recess meeting, it would have been on the 16th. This room would be available for a hearing on the 16th. Wouldn't conflict with any other boards like zoning or planning. So that's an option, but we're here to listen to any other options the other councilors might have. Councilor Nyan.
I actually think it's a good idea to have it on the night of our normal recess meeting. I think we have, looking at the agenda, we have quite a few public hearings on the 10th. I would move that we actually hold it on that recessed meeting date.
Second.
Okay. Councilor Champlin.
My only concern is that it's my wife's birthday.
Oh.
Welcome to attend.
Well, yes, she's more than happy. We're more than happy to have her
Sit
attend.
in. She may want to testify.
Well, the city solicitor
I will accede to the.
City solicitors informed me that as long as we have a quorum present, then the meeting can go forward. So if you need to escape and be with your wife on her birthday, so long as the other councilors are here to form a quorum, I think we can manage through it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor for October 16th, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, takes us to
Are we taking out item 58 off the table?
Yeah, I move we take item 58 off the table.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and the ayes have it. Item 58 is off the table. Madam Clerk, if you would mind reading that.
It's a report from the Rules Committee recommending revisions to the current rules of the City Council. There was a supplemental report from the City Solicitor, as well as a copy of current and proposed rules submitted for this meeting as well.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. Our committee met multiple times, and as you recall, we came back with some items, but there were still some concerns regarding some of the rules. And so we had put this on the table for quite a while, and we had several meetings. We also added Councilor Hirschlag onto our committee, who had a lot of helpful suggestions. He's obviously an advocate of transparency, and he was instrumental in some of the changes. And so what the council sees tonight are some changes that most of us agreed with. I think all of us at the time. There still could be some concerns here and there. But the crux of the major issue that we had a disagreement on, if there were any, because everything else we agreed on, was simply whether a counselor can go to a meeting or not and speak. And maybe we could have the solicitor come up here as well, but there's been some guidance from the Municipal Association on this issue, and many of the members felt strongly that just because you're on the City Council doesn't mean you should give up your First Amendment rights to being allowed to show up to a meeting. That would include items in front of a planning board, so long as you are speaking on behalf of yourself and not on behalf of the City Council. And I could cite various areas where any one of us councilors would want to show up. For instance, the Arena and RPAC committees are going to be forming a joint committee to talk about what to do with the land there. But it's limited to 4 people on both sides. But if you're a counselor who feels strongly about doing something in that area, just because you're a counselor doesn't mean you should be prohibited from showing up to the meeting and saying, hey, why don't you do X, Y, and Z? Here's a couple of my ideas. So long as you're there as an individual. And of course, we all feel strongly about the city of Concord, and I think a lot of us would like to have that opportunity. But Mr. Mayor, if we could have the solicitor come up, it would be helpful, I think, because he found some things after our Rules Committee meeting talking about the Municipal Association's opinion regarding Board of Selectmen or people on councils speaking as individuals. So I'd ask for the solicitor to come up and speak more eloquently on some of the changes as well.
Perfect. Mr. Kennedy? So everyone should have, just want to make sure, there's the proposed amendments, and then there's a clean version of the proposed amendments. Everybody have those? Okay. As well as the memo from Mr. Kennedy?
Members of the council, I echo the comments made by Mayor Pro Tem. The Rules Committee did work very hard, several meetings over the past couple of years on examining these rules and trying to make every effort to determine what is appropriate for the council members to abide by serving on this council, and what rights do these councilors have, you as councilors have, as being members of the council. So I think if you look at the proposed amendments, you'll see on that item, the proposed are all in bold and italics, and so that'll be what's different from the current rules. And many of these proposed rules are procedural in nature, and as stated by Mayor Pro Tem, really the substance of these proposed rules go down to Rule 6, Section 6. And it starts with Section 6A. And what we wanted to do in Section 6A, or what the Rules Committee, and I think the guidance from the City Council is really contemplating here, was that we have an ethics ordinance, as you know, that the council passed several years ago, and what we were aiming to do was to have the rules, council rules, coincide with that ethics ordinance. And so 6A simply states that, is that the city councilors are going to comply with the City of Concord ethics ordinance. And so we're not having a standard in the rules, council rules, as opposed to a different standard in the ethics ordinance. And so that's what you see there under 6A. Under 6B, that talks about the issue of conflict of interest, and it was important there too to follow the ethics ordinances as provided in the ethics ordinance. What we did there was talk about the conflict of interest of a counselor may participate in any matter before the City Council pursuant to 6A. If there's a conflict of interest issue, it may be raised by the counselor or raised by another counselor. And we're requesting, at least under this proposed rule, to be prior to the discussion on the City Council, or if the discussion has occurred, and this is the insert that the Solicitor's Office has made, as you'll note in my report, outside the Rules Committee, is that we're recommending that, so if discussion has occurred, as soon as the conflict of interest becomes known. Because what we don't want to happen, Your Honor, is for a conflict of interest to arise, or a discussion to be occurring here at the council, and then for a counselor to realize, wait a minute, I need to step aside. And so we want to be certain that in all good faith and interest is that the counselor has the opportunity to step aside. And so that was the insert that I made there. And you can see the remainder of the changes there. And then 6D is really what the Mayor Pro Tem was talking about here. And it's talking about, allowing counselors who are not appointed members of the City Council subcommittees, of city boards or commissions, may attend those meetings so long as they're meeting certain requirements here that are set forth in A through E. It's important, at least for the Rules Committee in considering this, is that the A through E rules apply. And first and foremost is when we have city councilors attending these meetings, they do so. Oh, thank you.
Anyone else?
They state on the record that they're doing so as a citizen and not as a member of the city council. And that was really the crux of it. And then B was the council shall refrain from stating or implying that it's any position of the city council. They're going to refrain from directing any action of the board. They're there testifying as a citizen because the issue may, presumably, is important to them. If you look at E, what we did there was the Solicitor's Office added a bit to E. we want to make certain that to the extent that any of you go to a subcommittee, board meeting, or commission meeting, is that there's not going to be a quorum of the council there. And so to the extent that a quorum exists, we need to be certain, sure, and otherwise absolute that we're not going to be running counter to the New Hampshire's right to know law. So for instance, this council meeting tonight was noticed in accordance with New Hampshire's right to know law, RSA 91A. There's a quorum of you here. There was notice. Janice, the city clerk, does a dutifully job noticing these meetings. And as we know that all subcommittee meetings and board commission meetings throughout the city are also required to be noticed. And so when those committee meetings are noticed, there's certain members on those committee meetings, and it's important that to the extent that, say, there's 4 council members on a committee or a board, it's important that there's 4 additional councilors who may show up, well, then we may have a quorum issue. And so we want to be certain that we're not going to run afoul of having a council meeting at one of these subcommittee meetings. And so that's really what E is talking about, is to pay attention to the quorum. Let's not have discussions regarding the subject matter over which the city council has jurisdiction and control to violate the right to know law. I have not seen this problem occurring, but it's something that all of us councilors but that all of you councilors certainly should be aware of, and councilors coming after you should be aware of, and so that's why we sought inclusion there. The remainder of the the edits are again procedural, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Council Kenson.
Thank you very much. The issue of councilors being able to speak as an individual, like say at planning board, zoning board, or whatever, my personal feeling is that this is not a good idea. That if the mayor, for example, who carries a great deal of weight,
I'm trying to lose weight.
That's why you're going to the chair.
Well phrased.
Were to show up at a planning board meeting or other meeting, I think even if it was as an individual citizen, that there's that other impact that, okay, this is the mayor expressing his opinion about something. Is that going to affect the decision of the board or whatever? So my personal feeling is that if we have something that is a personal issue, like zoning in our neighborhood, or that's going to affect my property, then I ought to be able to speak. But that other than that, I just don't think it's a good idea. And that's just my comment on the issue.
Councilor Slade.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll make this brief. I can't agree more strongly with Councilor than I can with Councilor Kennison's statement.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could I ask the solicitor to chime in on what the New Hampshire Municipal Association, what their opinion is on?
Yeah, just recently I was reviewing some of their treatises, and there may be more than this, but there is a publication that I found from Christine Fillmore from the New Hampshire Municipal Association back in August of 2013. And it was her opinion from the Municipal Association that a person does not lose their status as a citizen when they become a local official. And a recused official may wish to be heard on the matter just like any other member of the public. If this person feels strongly about the matter, they may have a right to speak during the time set aside for public testimony. If a recused official does this, they should begin with a statement that they are speaking on their own behalf as a citizen and not as a member of the board. This helps solidify the understanding that the official is not participating in the board's consideration on the matter. So that's at least one viewpoint of the Municipal Association on recused members not losing their right to speak, or as the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, their First Amendment right. And so these are important things to think about. I certainly respect Councilor Hirschlag's and Councilor Kennison's viewpoint. I'm not necessarily advocating for these rules. I'm the lawyer for the Rules Committee in this body, and helping to determine what may be appropriate for city councilors to do. And it certainly is, I think, legally permissible for councilors to attend subcommittee meetings and members of boards and commissions. The only, I guess, primary concern I would have would be the quorum issue under the right to know law. Whether or not there's other issues going on, you know, that's really something for this body to determine.
Let's go.
Does anybody know historically why the rules are set the way they are currently about not being able to speak at any boards or committees or functions, why it was put in there originally? I mean, there must have been...
Well, I know Councilor Hirschlag's done a fair amount of research on this issue, but we do know we have Paul Kavanaugh's memo that talks about the issue of board members not appearing before certain bodies, and in that memo, we understand that there was a city councilor who attended a zoning board of adjustment meeting and sought to appeal the zoning board of adjustment meeting. But in that regard, he did not have the authority of the city council to appeal the zoning board of adjustment meeting, and therefore had no right to testify at that meeting or to seek an appeal, because it was not a right set by statute.
And what year was that about?
I think it was 1997.
90. No, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Hirschlag?
Thank you. Paul Kavanaugh's opinion was written in 1992.
92.
And then I also have the minutes from the council where they they adopted Rule 6A-1 by reference. That was in November of 92. Solicitor Kavanaugh's opinion was in October of 92.
Yeah, that's correct. That's here.
So my interpretation is it's fair to say they were trying to avoid or rectify the situation where a councilor kind of threw his weight around as a city councilor, not a private citizen, to do something that was not proper. Rather than just saying, don't do it again, you can't do that, they formed the rule to deal with that. Unfortunately, though, sometimes when you enact a rule or an ordinance, it has a sweeping effect on a lot of other things that you don't consider, which is then when you have other issues pop up in the city where it might be appropriate for an individual to speak, like if there's a chicken slaughterhouse that's being planned in a certain section of the city and you feel like, hey, I would like to say something about that. I live in this community too. I don't want that there, but oh, I can't because I'm a city councilor. Or this committee meeting I'm talking about now, the joint committee that might be formed that, you know, I may not be on or another councilor may not be on, but they might want to say, hey, can we build X, Y, and Z there? Can you consider that? And these are thoughts that really need to be expressed, in my opinion, early on, rather than then once they get to the council, then acting as a city councilor, thwarting it and changing it instead of making it a good product. Secondly, if it's actually in front of a different board, like the planning board, and I understand Councilor Kennison's concern, that is a concern, but the other concern is none of those issues ever come to the council. So if you have a problem with how the planning board is discussing the Burger King corner and you know, certain businesses and how the traffic is going to ingress and egress, and you think it's a mistake for them to plan it a certain way, you have no right to show up and say, hey, I've been living in this community for a while and I think you ought to redo the traffic area, and that's, you know, flow would be better if you added a lane. You just can't do that because you're a city councilor. And so the question I have is, why do we give up these rights to speak our mind just because we are on the city council, so long as you're speaking as an individual, so long as you have no conflict? If there's no conflict and you're just speaking your mind, then there really is no legal issue. So this rule is, in my opinion, too over-inclusive.
Councilor Cohen and then Councilor Hirschlag.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do understand what you're saying. But I can appreciate what happened in 1992, whenever it was, is that in an ideal world, and the councilor presents oneself in the proper way, that's not intimidating or anything else, and I get it. But in reality, I think that probably wouldn't happen in some cases where a counselor has a passion about Burger King's intersection and can infer his or her saying, you know, this is really important, we do this, or else. I mean, I'm just not saying you would, but.
If I may, Your Honor?
Please.
I mean, I can tell you that there were a number of counselors at the planning board hearing regarding the chicken slaughterhouse. A number of counselors, not a quorum, but a number there. And I'm sure if provided the opportunity, one or more of those counselors might have said their piece at that time if they were allowed to. I can tell you that we are allowed to go to the state legislature and speak, not on the council's behalf, but on our own personal behalf. The only places we can't speak, ironically, we can speak anywhere we want. Any kind of forum or public matter is our own. So if I go to RPAC, I can't speak at RPAC. Does that make sense, I guess, is what I would ask. I mean, right. What am I, so long as I'm there as a private individual, saying, hey, why don't you consider putting a swing set in that corner? I mean, where's the conflict? Where's the harm? Why is the rule so exclusive that a counselor can't say that at a city council subcommittee meeting, so long as there's not a quorum?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to clarify the statement I made previously. 6A existed prior to October of '92. What happened at the November meeting of the council in '92 was that it was moved to amend the section of 6A and to adopt what are currently our rules in 6A. And in regards to 6A, Solicitor Kavanaugh states in his opinion dated October 7th, 1992, in passing Rule 6A, 1, the City Council intended to ensure the independence of the boards and commissions by freeing them from political pressure asserted by individual councilors. He goes on in the next paragraph and states, the rule does not deprive councilors of any protected rights. I think our city solicitor may say is a more limited opinion, but he goes on further. A councilor may appear on his or her own behalf. In the past, this exemption has been applied, and councilors whose interests were directly affected have appeared before city boards. And then I'll skip to the last sentence in that paragraph. If there is any doubt about a councilor's standing to appear, the council may be asked to waive the rule. And I'll also add that as a body, we can ask any member of a board to appear before us. We can also send a counselor to any board. I hope that clarifies my previous statement and also expands on my concerns about, I'm in complete agreement with Councilor Kennison, and I think the opportunity for, we've seen this come up before at the State House, where regardless of what you declare, whether or not you're there as an individual, the feeling of those board members, it's very hard to separate the person from the position.
Councilor Champlin. Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to endorse the position that was, I think, very well stated by the Mayor Pro Tem. His words echoed my thoughts a lot. I just can't step away from the feeling and the thought that it's bad public policy to require a city councilor to only weigh in on an issue when it's before the city council. I mean, it just seems to be, I mean, you know, if a member of the council has a strong feeling about a policy issue that's before a committee and has to express that when it comes before the committee, when in fact their feelings may put them at opposition, when in fact, you know, earlier feedback might have led to some, you know, other considerations or to, you know, a different course of action that might have had a more broad consensus. You know, I think that's a more effective way to run city government. You know, based on my years working for the state legislature, I don't think that any state representative or state senator, is prohibited from testifying before a legislative committee on a piece of legislation. And I know that, perhaps the Speaker of the House carries more weight than a rank-and-file member of the House of Representatives. But the fact of the matter is that I've seen committees, vote in opposition to a position that a speaker has presented as many times as I have witnessed the opposite. So I think this is a good change, and I'll support it.
Councilor Todd. Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to echo that. Councilor Champlin's comments as well as Mayor Pro Tem St. Hilaire's comments on this. I think that one other factor that we should focus on is that councilors that appear before planning boards, if I go before the planning board or the zoning board, I'm Brent Todd from X address, et cetera. It's up to the planning board or the zoning board members to recognize that that's who I am, that's who I'm representing, my own personal opinion, not the opinion of councilor. I don't go before the planning board and say, I'm councilor from Ward 1, Brent Todd, and I feel this way about that. Would be wrong, and I wouldn't do that. And I understand that perhaps maybe in future times, certainly no one from this particular group, but maybe there might be a future point in time where some councilor would stray from that policy. Again, I think it's up to the planning board chair and zoning board chair to rein that in and to take that into consideration. These are very intelligent people that sit on these boards, and I think they can differentiate the difference between me as an individual person and me as a city councilor. They're smart people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, just to follow up, Your Honor. The 1997 was in my mind because that's when the rule was changed from the 92 version to the 97 version. So I think it's important to note that if you look at Mr. Kavanaugh's 1992 letter, he was referencing the version of the rule that existed at that time. No counselor shall appear except on his own behalf before any board or commission. So that's really what we're returning to, is the 1992 version. Exactly. So in 97, what happened in 92 was that we had a city councilor go and attempt to file a motion for rehearing stating that he was a city councilor. Well, that was a motion, that is something that's controlled by statute. So in order to file a motion for rehearing in accordance with New Hampshire state law, you have to be an aggrieved party. To be an aggrieved party, that is defined by statute as well. And it's important to understand that to be an aggrieved, the city council can direct a city councilor to go and be an aggrieved party before the Zoning Board of Adjustment. That is the protected right that the Solicitor Kavanaugh was talking about, that nothing is being violated here. So when he states that it doesn't deprive a councilor of a protected right, that's really what's talking about the aggrieved party status, is that is set forth by statute. He wasn't talking about the First Amendment. And so I just think it's important that this council understands that what we're returning to really is the 1992 version of the rules.
Who else? Anyone else? Councilor Bouchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this. I was a member on the committee. The committee worked very hard on getting several drafts, on getting very clear language to 6A, that not only for us here to understand what's appropriate and what's expected of us within the RSA, the Right to Know Law, RSA 91A, but those that come after us. I mean, I believe through items A, B, C, D, and E, we lay out very clearly what is appropriate for the counselor when they go to speak in front of another body, that it clearly states, you make clear, everybody understands you're just speaking for yourself and not for the council. And it also makes it clear that when there's a quorum and what the conflict with 91A is. I think the committee, I think through our several drafts, I think we tried to address the concerns Councilor Kennison and Councilor Hirschlag of Councilor going in and presenting themselves in a manner that would have undue pressure. And here we're just talking about, within our rules, a councilor addressing themselves in front of another body. But there's nothing that can stop a councilor currently from maybe writing a letter to the editor, or maybe having public meetings and organizing people to go out and protest or organize against a certain action that might be taking place by another body. So I definitely support this. I think there was a lot of thought, a lot of drafts, a lot of rewrites, and everybody's concerns was taken into account.
Anyone else? Councilor Schleich.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate a statement I made at the end of our last Rules Committee meeting. I wanted to thank my fellow councilors for giving me all the time necessary to express my opinions and concerns. I also want to relay that I think the discussion that we had was very good. I think everybody's opinion was respected. While I disagree with my fellow councilors on Section 6D, I think overall a lot of progress was made on this on City Council Rule 6. And while I will not be supporting the change this evening, I want to thank my fellow councilors for the careful deliberation that was put into these changes, and also thank our city solicitor for the advice that he provided us while we were going through these changes. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. First of all, let me just say thank you to the committee. They put a lot of time and effort and thought into this, and I think they came out with a really good work product. I think the rules served the council, many councils, for many years, and they did just fine. But as you know, times change and technology changes, how we communicate with one another changes, and I think these rules are much more up to date and reflective of kind of how we function today. With regard to the specific issue of 6A, I wrestled this myself a little bit, and wondering, is it the issue of undue influence? If someone wanted to show up and we testify before a board or commission, do we bring more thunder than anybody else would? And it was actually Council Bouchard, which really made me think, and that, what I go back to is what's important to me is open and transparent government. And what 6D does is really shine that bright transparency light on City Council, because it is absolutely true that if I had an opinion, or any one of us had an opinion about an item before the zoning board, the planning board, or any other group you can think of, we can all write a my turn piece to the local newspaper or a letter to the editor and let everyone in the community know exactly how we feel. But I can't show up at the meeting to testify on my own. And so I'm giving up before that particular body my free speech, but yet I can write a letter. I can go on, I can take an ad out of the local radio station claiming my opinion about whatever it might be. I can go on local cable access, I bet, and probably give my opinion. I can stand in the front steps of City Hall and yell my opinion if anybody wanted to stop and listen, but I can't show up in the room to testify. So in the name of transparency and open government, I think the fact that you are showing up at a public meeting, oftentimes on television, where minutes are taken, and you are declaring you're acting as an individual, you are not representative of the City Council, and you are following all the other rules, A3, I think really goes to the heart of what we're trying to achieve with our rules, and that is making sure that the public has faith and trust in a city government, that we're operating in a fair and open fashion. And I hope that with that, we support the changes and really update our rules and bring them into the current version of where we need to be. So that's my thought. Anyone else? Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
So we do have a motion to accept the report from the Rules Committee, which would be adopting the proposed amendments as presented to each of us. Just for the record, you all did receive the clean version as well as the marked up version and the memo. So everybody clear on the motion? Mm-hmm. Ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
And the ayes have it. Okay. That takes us to item 59, please.
Still under unfinished business.
So let's skip that one. All right. How about, does anybody have any comments, requests, concerns they want to share with Councilor Todd?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have two, if you don't mind. The first is that I'll be holding a Ward 1 public information meeting on October 5th, that's a Thursday, at 7 p.m. at the Pennacook Community Center Gymnasium, which is, everybody always asks me, it's the big room, go down the stairs. And the community center is located at Community Drive at Dolphin Street. My colleague on the council, Counselor Shurtleff, also in his capacity as state representative, will also be attending, and I thank him for that. And there are many, the reason I'm holding this meeting is there are a lot of topics that are on folks' minds right now. The tannery site redevelopment, exit 17 development, possible trails creation, taxes, always popular topic, yeah. And any other topic of interest. So I just want to give folks a forum to discuss that, especially the tannery site redevelopment as it works its way through the planning board, et cetera. So that will be Thursday, October 5th at 7 p.m., Pennacook Community Center. And I'm very pleased to pronounce that on Friday, September 29th at 11 a.m. on Village Street in Pennacook, there will be a gazebo ribbon-cutting ceremony. Dave Poulin, who was one of our former colleagues on council, was instrumental in the construction of the original gazebo in Pennacook. When that had to be demolished during the road construction project recently, Pennacook citizens raised the funds to build the new gazebo, and it's ready now to be turned over to the city. And I know Your Honor will be there to cut the ribbon. Thank you. American Legion Post 31 will provide flags and music. There's going to be refreshments served by the Pennacook Village Association, who I want to commend. They really were instrumental in organizing the efforts to complete the gazebo. So our thanks to the Pennacook Village Association, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Bredovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. In Town Concord is celebrating their 9th annual upstairs downtown walking tour. It's this Thursday evening at 5:30. This event is so popular, it is sold out every single year. I attended a meeting this afternoon. They have enough volunteers that they're going to extend it. There's an additional 20 or so tickets that are available. If anybody was interested in signing up and didn't get a chance to, you can go to intownconcord.org. They simply ask that you come to Eagle Square at 5 o'clock. To gather everybody together, we'll go out marching. There's 5 extraordinary buildings that people will be able to see. What is it, 5:30? I think that we're leaving. And afterwards, there's a reception at the Capitol Center for the Arts where you'll get a brief tour of the Kimball House. It's a great event, and I would encourage people, since there is this expanded opportunity, take advantage of it, and we'll see you Thursday night.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I was just to one clarification point. This event is hosted by In-Town Concord. It is a fundraiser for In-Town Concord. It's a wonderful event I've attended in the past. It is not sponsored by the City of Concord because the question was posed to me is why is the City of Concord charging us tickets to participate? And I just want to make sure that the city does not participate. This is In-Town Concord, and you're participating in with a private group, and thus they charge tickets and such. So, but I encourage everybody to attend who can, because it is a wonderful event. Council Champlin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I thought that was an alternative revenue stream we were creating.
It can bring us a big check. And
well, it's not all I did. Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to commend our Parks and Recreation team for the work that they've done in Old North Cemetery. I note that on our consent calendar was a report from Mr. Gill. I just wanted to bring that forward in front of the public. I know that I had constituents in Ward 4 who were concerned about the condition of Old North Cemetery, the number of fallen or in jeopardy monuments, broken monuments, and had a discussion about that with the city manager. The city manager was very responsive, and the Parks and Rec Department as well. Just wanted to note that last year, the team over there preserved more than 160 fallen or leaning slate monuments and 30 fallen, broken, or leaning marble monuments. And this year, they focused on the Minot enclosure, which is where President Franklin Pierce and his family are buried, and have preserved another 128 monuments. Many of them, as the report outlined, extremely large, cumbersome, multi-piece monuments. And they've also not only stabilized them, but also cleaned them. And I just want to say thank you to the city manager, and thank you to Parks and Rec and Mr. Gill for addressing this. This is a gem in the city, and because of President Pierce's presence there, the presence of his burial place, it also is the focus of out-of-town tourists. So we're very pleased and appreciative of that work. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Bouchard.
Thank you. I have two, Mr. Mayor. One is from Councilor Nyan. He had to leave early to go pick up his daughter from a dance class. And this, if he was here, he would have reminded us all that hazardous collection will be held Saturday, September 16th at the Everett Arena. It will be held from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And there's a nice little tidbit here that these collections of hazardous waste have resulted in capturing an average of over 20,000 pounds of hazardous, ignitable, toxic, reactive, or corrosive materials per year, protecting our environment and safely and responsibly getting these materials to ultimate disposal or reuse. So thank you, General Services, for holding that this coming Saturday, the 16th, 9 to 3 at Everett Arena. May I do my second one now? I was wondering if it was possible if we could have the city engineer come up and give a quick update on Loudon Road and to inform us if there was anything the contractors might have found while doing Loudon Road that issues maybe we should address now while the road is being constructed rather than later.
Sure. Before we do that, is there anybody else want to share anything? Okay. Ms. Roberge, do you mind?
Members of council.
Welcome.
I heard the first part about an update, but I think you might have had a statement of sorts that I didn't hear.
Yeah, I was wondering if the contractor has noticed any items that should be fixed now rather than later while they've been doing their reconstruction work.
Yeah, Loudon Road is a bit of a challenge. The roadway is in good shape. They started back on August 18th. In fact, I'm working with Concord PD to do some kind of period enforcement just to see what the speeds are as a check, because we have seen and we received some comments that speeds are up, but the first paving layers that are on there are underway. They're performing quite well. As you see, the kind of the progression of work along the curb line, that's all curb and drainage and sidewalk work. There are some sections of sidewalk that are in tougher shape that we're going to replace. They're working on tip downs. Had some weather challenges and the nature of the work where some of the basins are not as open as they would be. I mean, they're going down the road to open all the catch basins up. They tend to fill up with debris a little bit more, so it's been a little bit more labor intensive with some of the weather. But over the next couple of weeks, we should see them continuing on with the curbing, sidewalk, tip downs, some of the drainage structures, bringing us to about the last week of September, where we start adjusting all the structures that are in the road. There's almost 100 structures, be it either catch basins, manholes, water gate boxes. All of that gets readjusted for the return to night work to get the paving done. So. Some of the challenges are finding some old catch basins that are in tougher shape.
Raising the necessary funds to pay for the anticipated projects, the replacement of the irrigation, the continued replacement of the irrigation system, and the parking lot, and some of the other items that are outlined in the capital improvement program.
All those projects that we've talked about in the past during the budget, we would work with the Golf Course Advisory Committee to make a determination of what the priorities are. and what could be phased. I don't think you can look at 1 year and say that it's not, you're not going to be able to raise the money through the golf course. I think what I've seen over time is that the golf course is being, or I should say the golf course property is being used more and more as a community-wide facility, and there's other uses on it. So it would make sense that the general fund participates in the funding of some of those projects. To what extent, I don't know. So I don't think I'm ready, based on a 1 minute no warning, to put together the fiscal year 19 budget for you. But I think over the next 5 or 6 years, you're going to have to do the irrigation system if you want to have a successful golf course. It does make sense to not only improve the parking lot, but to expand the parking lot, and there should be some work on the clubhouse. So I think inevitably there's going to be general fund contributions to that. But that being said, I can anticipate a lot of other users up there besides people who just play golf. So everything from the election in November to the golf course simulators of people using the restaurant in and of itself. So I think it's an investment. Well, it'll pay for itself. Oh, and then of course, as you know, the winter activities with the cross-country skiing. I do snowshoeing up there, so it's. And I'm sure a lot of other people do too.
So I don't want to tell you how many years I've been pushing to have a real cross-country center up there that would actually enhance the revenue. But my concern would be, I don't have a problem generating additional revenue from the other uses or anticipated uses. My concern would be that that the golf course itself, the specific costs pertaining to the golf course, are not able to meet their expenses. So that would be my concern going forward. I'd like to make a motion.
Counselor, do you have any ideas of how I'm listening to, trying to just follow the logic. Do you have any ideas of other things you'd like to do up there other than golf during the summer? I mean, would you rather just the city sell it and we develop that area, or I mean, if you look at golf, it's kind of like a ski season and such, and you're much more familiar with ski seasons from what I remember. It's very seasonal. It was very wet this past spring. It's been an interesting summer in terms of usage. Golf overall seems to be a little bit down, but there is a new, I think, interest and effort around youth golf at the club with the First Tee program that they're promoting. But I'm just trying to figure out where we're going with this, because I think we all share the exact same concerns you have, and that is making sure that we are providing as service, but doing it in a fiscally responsible way. So I just didn't know if you were looking to go a certain direction, or...
No, I was just curious as to if the administration had any thoughts on going forward. I don't want to tell you how many years, as I just mentioned, that I've been trying an advocate for a significant ski center up there that would actually mimic a cross-country center that you would go to in the other area throughout the state. I can tell you, when I was coaching at Concord High School, my wife and I had a small concession there. I did lessons on Sunday mornings. I get in about 4 o'clock in the morning to do the grooming. On Saturdays, I go off with the high school team to races, come back in the afternoon. On a nice weekend, we would see 500 people skiing. And if there was rentals and lessons and a trail fee, that would generate significant revenue for the pro. So other than that, I don't have a lot of ideas. I'm not a golfer. I don't want to pretend to I know what should or shouldn't be done to enhance the revenues of a golf course.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. As of tonight, Councilor Hirschlag could attend the golf committee meetings and provide some of this insight and see if they can have discussions about certain ideas they could bring to the council in the future.
Although, because he used to be a coach, this could be a conflict of interest.
No, he's no longer a coach
He ran a
right
concession.
now.
So,
So I find it quite, I don't find
I have
it
my hand
amusing. I don't find it amusing that
stop.
we're making light of our conflict of
We're
interest
actually not.
rules.
We're actually not.
No,
I think it was actually a very serious point. The point being, what I heard the Mayor Pro Tem say
I have no
is that
issue with the Mayor Pro Tem. I have an issue with Counselor
if you want,
Chapman
if
making
you
light
have
of our-
ideas,
of-
I apologize,
I think
Your
you encourage her to participate. And he,
I have
do you
no-
accept his apology?
I absolutely do.
Okay, moving along. Councilor Crederick.
Thanks, Your Honor. It was not too long ago, in fact, I think it was August, that we as a council looked at rates for the upcoming 2018 season. And that report very specifically talked about growth of the game. That's the focus of the golf course right now. What this report that Mr. LeBrun has pointed out is that weather is the biggest impact that we have in this year's golf season. We started late. We've had some rainy days that have cut into our greens fees. There is nothing we can do about the weather, but what we can do is try and encourage growth of the game. Thus, the youth events that we're doing, as the mayor had pointed out, we've also expanded the offerings that we have there by offering a golf cart membership, which is just going to add to the benefit of having the electric carts that we added the year previously. And we're also looking at expanding the opportunities for players Monday through Friday, where we have less play on the golf course, opening up holiday play to the members that are limited to Monday through Friday. The year previously, we expanded the youth and its young adult membership for people that are growing families and don't have the income that they could afford a full membership. So I think that if you were paying attention to what the golf course were doing, you would know that this has been the focus for the past 3-4 years. Growth of the game is the #1 thing that is impeding golf play today, and that's where our focus is. If we don't spend the money and the dollars to take care of the golf course, we can lose players faster. They will go to Concord Country Club, who you could go and sign up at Concord Country Club today. They don't have a waiting list of members. And then the other issue that we have to deal with is competition. We have a golf course in Pembroke. We have a golf course in Loudon. We have a golf course in Canterbury. They are all private courses. They take care of the property that they have. And if the city doesn't maintain our property, we will lose it. Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to place this back on the consent agenda for approval.
Second. Motion made to approve item 37. Motion been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any ayes have it. Madam Clerk, item 44, please.
It was pulled from consent by Councilor Hirschlag. It's a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase option agreement amendment with Caleb Development Corporation concerning the sale and redevelopment of city-owned property at 35 Canal Street in Pennacook.
Councilor Hirschlag.
Thank you, Your Honor. I pulled this item because, for all the reasons I've given in the past, I would like to make a resolution to, a motion, I'm sorry, to place this back on the agenda with the provision that that it be placed on to deny approval of the city entering into an agreement.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not an agreement, but to make the adjustments necessary to go forward with the agreement to the lot lines. I think I've got that right. Perhaps the clerk could help me out there.
So this resolution would be to authorize the manager to enter into a purchase option agreement amendment with Caleb Development Corporation concerning the sale of redevelopment of city-owned property at 35 Canal Street. And you are making the motion that to deny the manager the ability to, or his ability to authorizing him to enter the agreement. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Okay. Seeing no second. Is there any further motions?
Make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Okay. Make a motion to approve item 44. Is there any discussion on that? Okay. Seeing no discussion. Ready for the vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Ayes have it. Okay, that takes care of our suspense items. Excuse me, our pulled from consent. Can I have a motion to suspend our rules to take up consent suspense items 1 and 2?
So moved.
Second. Motion made and seconded to take up suspense 1 and 2. Madam Clerk, item suspense 1, please.
It's an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title I, General Code, Chapter 1, Government Organization for the Code of Ethics, and it's noted to be set for an October public hearing.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move we take up this item in October, Your Honor.
Second. Motion made and seconded to set this for a public hearing on October 10th. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
Just a point of order, Your Honor, on the motion to suspend the rules to take up these items. Do we need to vote on that first?
I thought he did.
No.
So what I thought I did was at the very beginning, I moved that we suspend our rules to take up
Yeah,
suspense
I
1 and 2.
moved it, and it was seconded, but I don't think we voted on it.
I apologize if that's true.
I think we're all tired.
It was so long ago, I can't remember.
No, that's fine, that's fine. I'd rather catch it and do it right than miss it.
That's why I just want to make sure we're doing it right.
Absolutely,
That's right.
absolutely. So we did have a motion to suspend the rules to take up items suspense 1, suspense 2. That motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem,
Myself.
seconded by
Somebody over there.
I think it was Counselor Champlin.
I think it was.
Councilor seconded that.
That's the one thing I
We
heard.
have a motion that's made and duly seconded before us, and we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and the ayes have it. Having suspended the rules to take up these items, we have taken up suspense 1. It has been read by the city clerk, and do we have a motion on this item?
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Kretovic made the motion, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. The motion is to have a public hearing on October 10th for the issue of the Code of Ethics ordinance. Everybody clear on the motion?
Yes.
Okay. I'll review the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the ayes have it. Madam Clerk, suspense 2, please.
It's a report recommending City Council grant a license to Liberty Utilities across city parcels known as MAP 45, Block 6, Lot 20, and MAP 45, Block 6, Lot 8, for the purpose of providing natural gas service to the New Hampshire Historical Society building at 6 Eagle Square.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Members of the council, Liberty Utilities informed us that they need to provide that to the property. Access to this property will need to be made via City of Concord-owned parcels. The license that you have in front of you includes a clause placing responsibility on Liberty Utilities for moving the main and/or service connection at their cost in the future, should the city deem it necessary. So I recommend approval of this so the facility can be heated for the winter.
Okay. Is there a motion? I apologize. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. So the motion would be to accept the report, recommend the City Council grant a license to Liberty Utilities across the city parcels known as MAP 45, Block 6, Lot 20, MAP 45, Block 6, Lot 8. Say that fast. Okay. Ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And the ayes have it. I believe, unless someone else has anything to come before the council, that it completes our agenda for this evening. Does anybody have anything else?
I don't believe we approved the minutes, Your Honor, from
Thank you very
last
much.
month.
Thank you very much. I got so excited to receive all the checks this time. So we do have item 5 before us, which is the meeting minutes. These are the meeting minutes from August 14th, 2017 for a city council meeting. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Councilor Schleck.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's no mention in the minutes of item, I think it was last month, I wrote it down here somewhere. Of the item with the keynote that when you stepped aside last month, there's no indication that you stepped aside. So I'm wondering how that would be dealt with in the minutes.
So if you go to the minutes, on your iPad.
On the city website, sir?
Yep, on the city website. So it's a public document. Item 53, action. In Mayor Boulet's absence, Mayor Pro Tem St. Hilaire provided over this item.
So why isn't that in I legislate?
Should be right there.
Item 53.
Item 53.
Page 11 of 23.
It was updated earlier today.
Where was that placed?
So it says, item 53, report from the city solicitor regarding Senate Bill 191, Keno and the funding of full-day kindergarten in New Hampshire, together with
I do not
communication
have
of
that
child
on
and active.
iLegislate. Did you do your update?
Need to refresh
Right
it.
here. You didn't refresh your.
Yeah, I refreshed this after the message I received from the clerk today. So when was this placed in?
Today.
Don't know the exact
It's
time.
right here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
There is a second portion
Um,
when the mayor returns.
So, let me just go back here. I gotta have a second, please. No,
You gotta go all the
yeah,
way.
I understand.
Go back here.
I know where I'm going here.
And then item 54, it says, Mayor Buller return to the meeting.
I don't have that either.
Yeah, refresh.
I got to refresh.
Yeah.
I didn't write, no, mine said 2:30, okay.
Is that okay with the minutes? If they reflect that, is that okay?
Yeah, as long as it's noted.
Okay. Anyone else?
Move approval of minutes.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from August 14, 2017. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Yes, have it. Mayor Pro Tem?
Were we going to discuss something about
Yep.
one of our ordinances?
Yep, yep. Okay. Mr. Manager,
Never-ending meeting.
would you like to share anything about a recent court case regarding the city of Manchester and?
Yes.
It's a good look.
I do now. So the city solicitor and I have been talking, he informed me last week of a decision that came down related to the city of Manchester and the panhandling ordinance that was essentially struck down by the court. And the discussion was, how does that affect the city of Concord? And so based on that and based on the discussion that we had, it made sense to us that until such time as we can sort through all the information related to that, and being that Manchester, I believe, pretty much copied most of what the city of Concord had written, as has many other communities, not only in the state but other parts of the country, that it would make sense for us not to enforce our ordinance at this time until such time as we can review it further. And then the idea would be, as we get more information, bring it forward to the Public Safety Advisory Committee to review. But it'll take some time for us to look at all the information that's out there and all the different court cases throughout the land for this, and then actually work to see if there's some ideas we can do to make this more workable from the court's perspective. Would you like to add anything to that?
I think that's a reasonable explanation. What we'd had last Thursday, was a decision from the United States District Court here in New Hampshire that an ordinance similar to the City of Concord's passing of items ordinance here in the city is unconstitutional. That follows a series of other cases. But putting a long story short, we'd like this council to acknowledge that we are going to not enforce that ordinance until further notice. And I believe it may be appropriate to have a motion to that effect and perhaps refer that ordinance to the Public Safety Advisory Board.
Thank you very much. Councilor Sherliff?
Yes, Your Honor. On behalf of Councilor Grady, who had to leave earlier, and as the chair of the Council Public Safety Committee, I would move that we ask the Concord Police Department not to enforce Ordinance 17-7-3 based on the U.S. District Court's decision, and that ordinance be referred to the Public Safety Committee for whatever action they deem appropriate.
Second. Third.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Anything else we have, Councilor Flynn?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just the previous item about the minutes. My last correspondence that I received from the city clerk was at 4:47 for municipal filings of those who have filed to run for city council. And then previous to that was 2:27, the revised September council agenda. I updated my my agenda at about 3:30, 3:38, and there the notation that is now in the minutes was not there. So I'm just wondering at what time that last update was sent out.
I have no idea exactly when it was reposted. It was probably shortly after that if you didn't get it.
Thank you.
I don't have it either.
Council President.
I was going to say I spoke with Janice with regards to the meeting minutes, and there was an update at 5:55 p.m.
I did not receive that.
There still was an update at 5:55 p.m.
I'm not arguing with you. I just said I didn't receive it.
Okay. Most importantly, the minutes we all voted for
Correct.
actually reflect the minutes, the meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Seeing none, this was a wonderful evening. Great to see everybody, and have a wonderful week. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Have a great week.
Steve, I had criminal justice.